7, 8, we have a quorum.
Okay, so we have enough for a quorum. It's 2:30 or after 2:30, so let's go ahead and just get started. And since we have enough people to vote on it, anybody want to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes or make any changes?
Motion to approve.
Joe Rivero, second.
All right, so moved and seconded. All in favor of approval of the July 2016 meeting minutes, say aye.
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 Those opposed, same sign. All right, meeting minutes are approved. First thing's going to be our FirstNet update, and I assume that's going to be you, Kim?
Yeah, it's just kind of a rehash of some things we know but are coming up pretty quickly. Next week on Wednesday the 24th at 1 p.m., FirstNet leadership will be out to meet with the metro area chiefs. That includes police and fire chiefs, all of the sheriffs from the surrounding sheriffs, law enforcement executives, fire executives from Denver and the surrounding counties have been invited to meet with FirstNet. We'll be at the Denver PD Crime Lab Auditorium at 1371 Cherokee. I did send an invite out to the governing body. If anybody is interested, please just let me know because we will need to ensure you have parking. Tracy, do you have anything to add on that?
Oh, no, I don't. That did a good job. We're looking forward to TJ Kennedy is coming out to brief the Denver Metro public safety leaders and to hear what they have to say. You know, what is it that they want in a system? What are some of their concerns? Here's where we are, update. And I look forward to meeting everyone.
All right. The next item is that we have, or actually I should say FirstNet has scheduled the PEIS meeting. Remember that's the public notice that was posted recently, and that supports the environmental impact study that has to be done by FirstNet to meet the NEPA requirements. That meeting will be on September 20th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. It'll be at the Denver West Sheraton, which is basically off of Union and 6th Avenue in the western edge of Denver and Lakewood. That meeting primarily is designed to support in-person presence or attendance if desired, and I don't believe you have to attend all 4 hours. You can just go in and look around and meet with anybody and ask questions, but we are asking FirstNet to support a period of time where people could call in and ask any questions remotely. Tracy, do you have anything to add on that?
Yes, this is a programmatic of the environmental review, so this is what the process is, as opposed to here's where the tower is going and here's the environmental impact. This is getting ahead of that step. It's an open house format. There'll be posters, people there to ask, explain what's going on, answer questions. It's a federal requirement that we do this, so it's transparency, and we're looking forward to engaging with the public to the maximum that's possible. And we tried to pick a place that was easy to get there with parking and all that. And we are trying to get some sort of a way, like a phone line, so there can be remote participation. Those details are still pending, depending on how the hotel is and what we can work out there.
Looks like that was taken care of.
Yeah, and on that, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with these environmental impact statements. It's part of the National Environmental Protection requirements. They're pretty comprehensive, and at this point, as Tracy kind of alluded to, they're very kind of esoteric and high level. I've not had the chance to go through all 544 pages of it, but I did peruse it, and some of the things, the key aspects of it that I've seen so far is what it does is it goes through and classifies and says what would the environmental impact of this be or that be. So they kind of break it down by air, by water, by soil, by this, that, and and then break it down by, okay, does putting new fiber in affect the environment? Yes or no, and here's that. And so the things I've been able to glean from it are, basically what they've said is using existing fiber or conduit would have no environmental impact. So if we're just lighting up dark fiber, or if you're blowing new fiber through an existing conduit, that would really have no environmental impact. Other than that, though, it does say that basically every other activity, even hanging equipment on an existing tower, will potentially have environmental impact. Now, the next step is going to be to say, okay, what is that impact? And what they'll probably do is say, okay, as long as you do A, B, and C, if you're hanging equipment on an existing tower, you don't have to go through a full environmental analysis, unless you're, rebuilding the tower or doing something like that. So this really is the first step. From what I can tell, it's very, very high level. Seems to fall in line with most environmental issues. One other note I did notice, they talk about existing wireless coverage in our state, and according to the PEIS, AT&T covers about 75% of the geography of our state. So I found that to be amusing. So we'll comment on that. So we'll look through it a little bit more and do some general comments. But that's kind of just what this is and what it involves. So.
And those comments aren't due until the middle of October, so we'll have plenty of time to run those through everybody, in case you desire to read all 500 pages of the document. Any questions on the PEIS? I'll send that to everybody. You can have it on your calendar. I'll wait until we have information on whether people could call in or not as well. State assumed RAN planning update. Brian, I'll turn that one over to you.
Yes, so we forwarded out, the NTIA came out last month with their initial notice for comment on what they're calling the SAP, the State Alternative Plan Program. But as everyone recalls, the law states that the NTIA, that, if we choose to opt out and the FCC approves our plan, then we may, it says may apply for grant funding from the NTIA, and we shall apply for a license, a sublease. So that, they basically came out with their initial comments on what that looks like. We were a little disappointed, I should say very disappointed, in that really there is no details. They essentially just threw out a bunch of ideas and said you'll get the details later. And so we did respond, worked a lot with our Attorney General's office and some other outside legal counsel and other stakeholders, did talk with some other states about this. And essentially, the summary of our comment that we just filed today, one is that timing. In there, the NTIA says they will not give us the details of the plan until we get the state plan. And we said that doesn't work, you're essentially trying to run the clock out on us, and that makes any kind of decision moot. And that what we say is we need those details of the program at least 90 days before we get the state plans. And we talk about some of the timing in terms of how fast the NTIA needs to move on that. We talked through transparency. The Act specifically exempts FirstNet from the Administrative Procedures Act, but the NTIA is not exempt from the Administrative Procedures Act. So we basically talked through, and based on what the NTIA states, it appears they're not going to follow the APA on a lot of these discussions and issues. And so we basically say, why are you not following the APA? We believe you should have to follow the APA on this in terms of the specificity and the formal rulemaking process. Basically, the APA is what you have to go through, at the FCC or any kind of executive or regulatory agency. When they make rules or guidelines, they have to go through a very formal process to do that. We talk about the role of the NTIA. The NTIA seems to assert a little bit more authority than we believe that the statute allows them. If you look at the law, the only entity that basically has the ability to approve or disapprove is the FCC. And so we talk through that. And then in general, we state that we support Washington State's comments. I worked a lot with the folks at Washington State, and their comments are very similar to ours. And so we reference those. Some of the finer points of it, the NTIA is trying to classify the lease agreement as a grant. We think just because that gives them more leeway and limits judicial review. So we're saying no, that us entering into a lease agreement with FirstNet is not a grant of anything. What else do we do? The funding levels, in it, the NTIA makes a statement, they say things like, NTIA may take into consideration cost increases FirstNet will incur should a state assume the responsibility to conduct its own RAN, and may reduce a final grant award accordingly. So we say things like, what are these cost increases? Will the NTIA take into account the cost increases to a state of opting in? Are they looking at ongoing costs or just capital costs? We ask all these kind of questions. They also basically say that, that they'll take into account cross-border economies of scale. And we say, what the heck does that mean? That's really a nebulous term. They talk about requiring specific resumes for technical staff should we choose to opt out, and that they'll determine whether our staff meets qualifications. And so we asked stuff like, you know, what are you going to require? Are you going to require 10 years minimum LTE experience, or what, you know, how are you going to judge someone's qualifications? You know, and if we have a third-party partner, how do you judge them? The other big point we talk about is about this environmental compliance. We basically say that any environment, that this PEIS that is being developed by NTIA and any subsequent categorical exclusions should apply both to opt-out and opt-in states. So that's kind of a summary of our responses. You can read the whole thing and get back with Kim or Ed or I on any of the specific details. But that's kind of the summary of that. Any questions?
No, this is Carl Stevens. I'm on the call now.
Thanks, Carl.
Hey, Brian, could you say something about just when, like the other comments will be posted? For instance, the Washington State, is that going to be, what's the timing on that, or do we know?
Well, all comments are due today. So
No.
if you go to the website, last I checked, there was 5 comments: Indiana, California, ours, Michigan, and Nevada, and then a private individual. So there's 5 or 6 comments. So they're due today. You know, I emailed mine mid-morning, and they were posted within an hour, hour and a half.
Okay, great.
Okay. Yeah, they'll probably get, I'm sure they'll probably get inundated this afternoon because it said close of business on the 18th. So I would probably not expect a full update till tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Yeah,
good.
and I sent that link out to everybody so you could check with that link as well.
And we did look, and while to date, no one, the other comments aren't as detailed as ours. California had the same concerns that we did in terms of timing and really, you know, clarity on this process. Michigan had the same concerns as well as did Indiana. So we're definitely not alone in our perspective on this.
I'll skip back to Bob. Bob, yeah, sorry.
Okay. Any other questions on the comments or our response?
All right. The working groups, each group has met once in the past month, and then I believe, Ed, you're kicking off the operational group next week. Is that correct?
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm on mute. So yeah, we'll have our 3rd meeting this month, next week. Yes.
Okay, and then the one just item of note is we do have a good representation to Bozeman next week. It'll be myself, Ed, Kevin Cromer with Eagle County Sheriff, Mick McQuilton with Eagle County, Ken Wetstein with the Colorado State Firefighters Association, and Scott Newman with the City of Aurora to participate in the quality of service priority and preemption discussion that's going to occur in Bozeman next week. So we'll provide you all feedback at the next meeting about that. On the project front, we are working with Signals to begin vetting all of the assets and finalizing what a potential alternative plan network would look like. We'll hopefully be able to provide you a more comprehensive update on that at the next meeting. Just to understand that that is underway as well. One other minor FirstNet update I want to provide is that today the Department of Commerce announced that the replacement FirstNet board members, if you recall, 4 board members per year, except for the 3 federal standing members, are up for reassignment or selection of somebody new. Sue Swenson, Jeff Johnson, and Terry Takai all will remain as board members, and Sue Swenson will be the chair for the next 2 years again. And then Barry Boniface, who's a private sector representative, he will be leaving, but they have not announced his replacement, so he'll stay in place until that replacement is announced or until the end of the year. So we'll let you know when that position comes due. So there's effectively no replacement of the board, no changes in the board right now. The other item of note that we wanted to let you know is that New Hampshire did publicly announce the ranking of their RFP. And just as general information for all of you, Bravado is ranked highest in the state of New Hampshire's RFP process. Then Parsons, which is a consortium, I believe, of respondents under the header of Parsons. Motorola was ranked 3rd. Mutual Link was ranked 4th, and then a company called Wireless service systems or something similar was found to be non-compliant. So that's all of the FirstNet update, Chief.
All righty, Ed, you're up.
We can't hear you, Ed, if you're talking.
So sorry, I am, so let me just get started here. I apologize, I am at FRI, Fire Rescue International, and so I'm in a busy hall, and I'll be muting, and it may take me a second to get back. So anyway, let me just kind of give you a little bit of a rundown. Some of this we may have already said, but it'll be good to just pass over it again. Some of the bigger events that we're doing is we are with FirstNet down at Fire Rescue International in San Antonio, Texas. And we're here with the subject matter expert, Mike Worrell, and FirstNet national staff. And this is really just a great opportunity that we've been invited to. And we're just highlighting the efforts that we've done here in Colorado, as you know, with our demonstration networks, as well as some of the videos that have been done by FirstNet on the national level. This just gives us a good platform to talk about the work that we have done and how the FirstNet Colorado governing body has really been a leader in the space. So we're happy to be here, and we're glad they asked. Next week, we'll be at the National Safety EMS Conference, and we will have the subject matter expert for FirstNet, Brent Williams, will co-present with me. He's going to give about a 10-minute update on what FirstNet's doing on the national level, and then we're actually going to speak about emerging technologies in emergency medical services, which has really kind of been our focus in about the last, well, let's just call it 2016. For example, those of you who are at the XPSLPE event, you realize that, you know, we're really pushing the effort. We want our responders to get the technology in their hands and to understand it. So that'll be next week. And then we will also be co-presenting this year in 2 to 3 sessions at the Colorado Fire Chiefs Conference. We've invited Mike Worrell, again, the subject matter expert fire, and he'll be co-presenting with Brian about what's going on with FirstNet and then what's happening here in Colorado with our efforts. And then Gary Breeze has asked us to do a couple of sessions on virtual reality and augmented reality. So we're excited about that. I am scheduled to do 3 sessions at the 5G conference in Dallas. And again, they want to know, what is Colorado doing? They've heard a lot about our demonstrations. They heard a lot about XPSLPE. And so we're going to raise the banner there in Dallas, Texas in November. During that same week, we have just been asked to speak at the on emerging technologies for wildland firefighting at the 3rd annual Wildland Firefighting Conference. And we'll be doing a teaching session as well as what's called an Ignite talk. And it's kind of like a TED talk. It's a very fast-moving talk. We have an article coming out in the fall edition of the Colorado Firefighter magazine. And I will get Kim the link if she doesn't already have it. We'll send you an online version that we put together so you can see what the content of that article will be. But again, we're just pressing the idea of, to our stakeholders, here's the types of technology that is out there today, and this is how it all come together one day when we have a national public safety broadband network. We are continuing our efforts to meet with municipalities, counties, and Colorado-specific groups like the sheriff's, police, fire, EMS, emergency management, dispatch, and PSAP. And we're going to meet as a team here, and we're going to kind of regroup and figure out what we need to be doing for the next 6 or 7 months as we get ready for some of the things that FirstNet's doing. Moving on to the next one. In the newsletter website and marketing, let me just make some general comments about that. You'll probably only see a late summer newsletter and then maybe one more edition, but we're actually getting ready to transition from an online newsletter to just using our blogging more effectively. This will allow us to do a lot of things, but most importantly, we won't have to wait a whole month to get key information out, and you won't have to sit down and devote a bunch of time to read it. When something is very important, we'll be able to send it out through the blog, and that'll be viewable like that. Our new employee, Sarah, she is taking a look at everything that we've been doing with a very fresh and I don't want to say critical eye, but, you know, really how can we, what is the impression that our stakeholders have, and how can we get the message more succinctly to them and to where it makes sense? Because those of us who've been around this for, you know, 2.5, 3 years, it's, you know, we understand some of the language and all that, but she's given us a very detailed description of how we can better market ourselves here in the future. The online training development, we met with the group that's putting that together for us. We are going through a testing phase now, so that, in fact, we will be asking some of you to go through. Anybody that's interested, please let either Kim or myself know. But we want to show you what that training looks like, and we want you to help us to start to go through the links and see if there's any messaging that's wrong or if there are any links that are broken. But we should have that up and running sometime in the month of August. And anyway, I could probably talk a lot more, but I know you've got a lot of business. So are there any questions for me at this point? Then I'll hand it back to you, Chief. Thank you.
All right. So AdCom, do we have anybody from AdCom on? I don't think so. And Brian, you don't have any update on AdCom, do you?
No, we've not had any conversations with those guys recently. No. So.
All right. Well, then we'll just jump into your legal issues, Brian.
Legal issues. So have some movement on this. And Bob, I'm going to apologize for not getting you up to speed on this earlier. With just things have been kind of moving quickly. So if the group recalls, the local jurisdictions, CMLs and CCI, had wanted to get some perspectives, local perspective, a legal analysis on this. And so they had been working with another group called the CCUA, which is a telecommunications kind of interest group that the local governments put together to acquire the services of Ken Fellman, who's a well-known telecom lawyer here in the state and at the FCC. And we were kind of trying to arrange how to structure that. During that process, the Attorney General's office, who we work with, Aaron and Leanne, basically said, well, why don't we just make him a special Attorney General so that we can kind of use him as we need to on this subject. And we said, great. So we are actually in the process of working with the AG's office to appoint Ken and one of his employees as special Attorney Generals. So basically, anytime we need legal review, we have that relationship already established through OIT and the AG's office, so we will just be able to go through our existing frameworks. We won't need to have any new contracts or memos or any of that kind of stuff. So that's really exciting. So we'll continue to have Ken do the work he proposed to the local jurisdictions, which was really analyze this whole thing from a local jurisdiction perspective, and as well as do things like these comments we just submitted. You know, if we'd had this done a few weeks ago, Ken could have, you know, really worked these comments a lot better than I can, since he is a lawyer. So we're really excited about that, and I think will really help us have the expertise. You know, Aaron and Leanne have been outstanding, but I just think they came to the point where they said, you know, one, there's capacity. They are overworked themselves at the AG's office, and two, just having that technical expertise. Ken has been the chairman of NATOA and several other telecom interest groups, and is well known at the FCC. So I think it will really be a good move forward. So that is where we're at with the legal process. Any questions on that?
No, that's brownie points in our court. So good job having him represent at the state level.
Yeah, like I said,
that's excellent.
Yeah, it was all Aaron and Leanne. I got to give credit to Aaron and Leanne. So they're the ones that came up with that idea, and they're moving very quick. We just started talking last week, and I believe Leanne and Ken are having conversations right now, and we're hoping to have the agreement finalized next week, I believe, so, or the week after. Yep.
Perfect. And Bob, I have to jump off, so I'm going to turn the rest of the meeting over to you, if that's all right, Bob.
Well, okay, I wasn't ready for that, but sure.
I wasn't ready either. I didn't know until just right this second. So
no problem.
If you don't have an agenda, have or Kim, either one. But I got to go, so see you guys.
Okay, all right. Hey, Kim, since I'm kind of blind right now, can you just kind of, I'll shotgun you or Brian.
Sure. So we're down to old and new business. The old business, I don't know, that we're just kind of keeping it on there as a placeholder for people to keep in mind that we are going to have to determine as a group, and certainly within the state, how we would formally fund any alternative planning activities.
Yeah, and on that, so I'm working with our internal process to get funding. Just to recap, the NTIA grant that's funding right now, Kim and Sarah, run out at the end of next calendar year, so December 17, which is in the middle of the next fiscal year for the state. So we're working on our budget requests for that right now. The request to continue Ed and Sarah, as well as some operational expenses, was supported by OIT leadership. So it made our final cut of requests that we submit to the Office of State Planning and Budgeting. Now, we are in the process of going through the back and forth about whether our request is worthwhile or not. So hopefully this request will make it through and be presented to the JBC. So I guess I would just say anyone that happens to have any friends on the JBC, just let them know that this is an important effort. I am working with Public Safety, Department of Public Safety as well, to kind of get some support to say that, you know, continuing this program in a whole would really help public safety as well. So that's really all I've got for, for that.
On the new items, I sent out, included in this, the ancillary documents for the meeting, were some questions, network and operational policy questions, and I'm going to actually propose to the board, if everybody's okay with it, that we will work on these questions within the business plan and technical working groups and come back to you at next month with the draft. The purpose of this is, it was actually, Bill Malone sent a good list of questions, included our team as well as Tracy Murdoch, that he proposes that FirstNet could answer prior to selecting a partner. As you all realize, a lot of times our questions that we pose are stated that FirstNet won't answer until they have a partner. But we'd like to come up with a series of questions. Hopefully FirstNet might be able to begin to think about some of these, if not answer them. And Tracy will help facilitate those through FirstNet's internal process. But we don't want to lose track of some really important network and operational policy questions, independent of the alternative planning and state plan process. So if the board's okay with that, we'll just work these through the working groups and then present them back to the group. And we might do iterations or quarterly requests to FirstNet. We can determine what's best in the next month or two. I guess I would just ask, is anybody, no, we don't need a vote, but anybody have heartburn about that? Everybody okay with that approach? All right, I'll take silence as agreement. The other item listed officially as a new business item is meeting docs, and kind of an assessment of what we've been doing well and what might be wasted work time. We send out a staff action items document and then the Google Analytics on the website. And if people find that those aren't of any value to them, we could stop doing them. I just wanted to ask anybody if they like to see that document. That way they can kind of see where things are at, but we don't have to discuss them in the meeting. Or if most people don't pay attention and if they think it might be wasted time, we take feedback one way or the other. And then if there's a desire to see the monthly Google Analytics, if people care about that, or we can just provide it in the education and outreach update. All right. I'll take silence as no strong opinion either way, and we'll discuss internally the best use of our time going forward. I think we hit most of the items through the agenda, but we'll discuss it and let everybody know what we decide. And then the last item I have that's new business, but is not on the agenda, is we were made aware last week of a meeting that AT&T was holding at APCO. And they were requesting specifically that SPOCs, or the program staff from various states, come to a meeting to talk about the entire FirstNet process if AT&T were to be chosen as FirstNet's partner. So none of our group was there, but there were a few governing body members there, and Paula Creasy attended on our behalf. She's on the plane right now, so I wanted to give you all a quick synopsis of her assessment of the meeting. She said that basically AT&T, Scott Agnew, who's the Director of Public Safety Solutions, ran the meeting. He handed out a sheet of paper containing a list of 10 aspects of building out the network and asked those people there to rank them. And there were about 10 participants from various states, including Illinois, Washington, Kansas, Alabama, and Michigan. The top three of almost everybody's list that was there was coverage, the strategy of deployment, and the use of local assets. Around coverage, her notes indicate that obviously it's very important to have the coverage needed, but also the capacity and level of service to be able to deliver the data and voice. And that they indicated they would like a type of indicator to the user about the network performance. With regards to local assets, the group shared that it's important to build out coverage using local assets, and they asked, AT&T asked how important hardening was with batteries and generator, et cetera, how expensive that can be. They asked the question about redundancy built in by adding more towers that weren't hardened, if that might be okay with people. Some agreed, but some concerns were shared about how that would really work in rural areas when coverage is challenging to begin with. Another item they discussed was management and security of the network and how that might be managed in each state. Most people like the idea that the state would monitor and manage the network, but there would need to be a way to provide local agencies access so their needs could be met, especially around an incident and who has priority. And remember, that's the whole local control piece FirstNet is trying to get their arms around as well. Many agreed that security would be mandated on the network and would be with the responsibility of FirstNet, not the customer. They had a discussion around deployables and who would manage the deployables within each state, the state, region, locals, or the carrier. It sounds like there were a variety of viewpoints, but that everybody would need immediate access, and a cache of deployables could be staged in regions. I don't know if that means regions as in states or regions within a state. But they understand there would need to be the ability to quickly add devices to the network for incidents. And then the last item was around customer service, and that it must be different than it is today. Perhaps a point of contact for states or regions and a way for users to troubleshoot problems, possibly a web portal. So these were just topics of discussion, again, clarifying that AT&T has not been selected, but AT&T proactively reached out to the SPOT community to get this input. The last thing they asked was that what would be a deciding factor for our state for opting in or opting out. And Paula commented that the strategy of implementing the plan and how they will form a partnership with the state would be very important to Colorado. And if the plan does not meet our needs, we don't feel that our concerns and issues would be addressed, then it would be likely more difficult for Colorado to select an opt-in decision. So that's new information. We'll kind of provide a summary, and then at the next meeting, if we have any specific questions for her, I'm sure she'd be happy to discuss in more detail. Any questions about that? Okay, then the last thing is just quickly some important dates. As I mentioned, the 24th is the Metro Chiefs. We'll be in Bozeman next week. On the 20th of September is the PEIS meeting. One thing I did want to mention to the group is we are coordinating an afternoon visit on Monday, September 19th to FirstNet headquarters and to the PSCR. So if anybody's interested in participating in that, I can work with you offline to arrange that. Since we're scheduling that, I just wanted to make that an option to any of you out there who might like to visit those facilities.
One more quick little housekeeping thing. So I don't think we brought this up with everyone yet, but so my boss, I think most of you guys had met Monica Coughlin, who was my boss. She was the Chief Strategy Officer for OIT and reported directly to Suma, the CIO. She actually left back in July. And is no longer with OIT. She went to work for the Colorado Technology Association. So we've been, and that move has kind of spurred some conversation about what the heck to do with us. And most of it centers around my rural broadband responsibilities. So I just wanted everyone to know that, so as of right now, I'm reporting directly to Suma, who's the state CIO. For now, while we kind of figure it out, that we're having some conversations with us, some other state agencies, and the governor's office about kind of what the best path forward is, where kind of my group fits. Again, mostly talking about the rural broadband effort, but I've been working on educating the governor's office how that rural broadband effort and this kind of overlaps. So I just wanted everyone to be aware of that, just in case you hear conversations about broadband in the governor's office or OIT or whatever. I mean, from a functional perspective, things are just moving forward. Status quo. They said the only difference is I now report directly to Suma. And as soon as we do kind of finalize things, the main delay has just been everyone's been out of town. Suma's been out of town for about a month now on work and vacation. I think the governor's been out of town for a while. There's a new lieutenant governor as well, Lieutenant Governor Donna Lynn, who is taking a much more active role and shows a lot of interest in the broadband. So just a lot of moving parts right now. But as soon as we kind of figure out what that looks like moving forward, I'll let everyone know. if there's any kind of major change that affects, our group and how we function. But this time, really, there's nothing that's changing how we approach that. So. Any last questions, comments, concerns?
This is Ed. Can I make one comment and add to what I should have said?
Go for it.
All right. So we finally did get our video done for XPS LTE. So we'll send out a tweet and we'll put it out on Facebook. If you would take a look at it, it's going to be a great tool to show people what the technology will do and what companies are working on, what kind of technologies to help first responders and responders in general out in the field. So it takes about 8 or 9 minutes, but it's very informative. That's all.
Thanks, Ed. Anything else?
Bob, that's going to be it. The next meeting is September 15th at 2:30. And for anybody, if you joined the meeting late and didn't announce yourself, I would just ask that you shoot me an email so I can add you to the list. And Bob, I think that's it.
All right, thanks, Kim. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Ed. If no one else has any other questions, we'll go ahead and conclude the meeting. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.